Hi, my name is Steve Rahi. I am a premier field engineer specializing in management technologies. Today's discussion will be part one of a series talking about Power BI, introducing it, trying to explore it, but all with a goal of using Power BI in a configuration manager environment. This is part one, will be an introduction. This is where we will go, basically introducing Power BI, understanding some pieces of Power BI, and then we'll wrap it up, right? So let's just jump right in. So what is Power BI? Power BI is a term that you hear a lot these days. It is a really cool piece of technology for analyzing data and so forth. But at the core, what is it? It's really a collection of software, services, apps, connectors that actually um, make Power BI what it is. It is something that is really all about the data. So a few places that Power BI really shines is the ability to bring disorganized data into clarity, taking unrelated data sources and transforming those pieces into coherent, visually immersive, interactive insights into data. What's cool about this too is there's really no specific programming skills required to be able to bring this to bear, right? And just as an introduction, I'd heard about Power BI here and there, and then finally was able to sit down into a meeting and watched this all happen. Uh, it was pretty cool. So there was a particular set of data that this business unit had been working with for 3 years. It was pretty core to their business, and uh, always they had thought they had a handle on it and so forth. One of the folks on the team had put that data into Power BI, and then Power BI gave us some visual representations of the data and brought to light within minutes some correlations in that data that no one had thought about on the team, and realized there was quite a gap in the data that no one realized, and that had some pretty significant financial implications that could then be cleaned up and so forth. It was really cool, and those stories abound. Certainly not just mine, but you can find many examples of similar kinds of things, right? Power BI is pretty simple if you want it to be. It can start with a data set that really is maybe something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, complex all the way to data that might span a cloud service and on-premise data warehouses, bring those together, that kind of thing. In Power BI, extensive ability to model data. We'll talk about that more as we go along. And then you can, if you do have those programming skills and those deeper level skills, you can do custom development if you want to. It's just not required. All right. So what are the components then of Power BI? Well, there are several. Um, and really, actually, before I leave this slide, what is Power BI? I mentioned the software services apps connectors. Yes, it is a collection of all of these things. Really, what Power BI is today is a packaging of tools that have existed in some forms for a while, right? You'll see those here on the next slide, which is why I flip back. Those collection of tools would include some of the power tools that are in Excel, and you'll see me show you some of those, at least flip across the screen here later on, right? But anyway, the key components of Power BI, really there's three. There's the desktop application. So this is one that is really the key authoring environment. There are others. You can use Excel directly. Again, I'll kind of show you a little bit about that. Our focus will be the desktop application for this. But, in the desktop application, I'll probably say this again in a minute. It's really useful, cool tool to bring some of this data to life. It's pretty easy to get familiar with. Uh, a good parallel for this tool, at least in my mind, it quickly falls down. But in terms of ease of use and so on, where as soon as I saw it, I thought SQL Server Reporting Services Report Builder tool. Very different tools, but at least the way that you can kind of set them up uh, had a lot of similarities in my mind again. Um, then there's the cloud service. So this is something that is hosted in in Azure. You can see the URL to get to it, powerbi.com. The cloud service, so the way these two services work, the desktop app is where you typically will build your reporting experience. The cloud service is where you will upload that to make it available to others. Now that's interesting too, because you can use, as you'll see in a minute, the cloud service to totally do all of the authoring and stuff that you would like to do, right? Looks very similar in certain pieces in the cloud service to the desktop application. But in a development environment, getting ready to build your reports, it makes a lot of sense to use the desktop application disconnected, upload that data into the cloud service whenever you're ready to publish it, and make it available to others. And then in the spirit of making it available to others, we have the mobile apps. So there's across all of the popular mobile platforms, Windows Phone, Windows tablets, iOS, Android, those things, we do have applications that will tap into the cloud servers, allow you to see the data, work with the data, and so forth at that level once it's public. And then in terms of the cloud service as well, there's more to it than just being the cloud equivalent of the desktop app. There's pieces in there that allows you to connect to third-party services and connect to services in your environment. There's examples would be like GitHub. There's a connector for that. Salesforce, lots more actually. There's content packs and different things that we can leverage. Again, you'll see some introductory stuff to them here in a bit. Not going to dive in too deeply to them, but just so you get a flavor. And then in addition to that, there are I would say terms that we need to understand, building blocks that we need to understand that kind of summarize how we would go about building things in Power BI. So the building blocks, there's visualizations. So the visualization is basically a visual representation of data, charts, graphs, color-coded maps. Those are the individual elements that you would use perhaps to describe the data that you're working with in Power BI. And the cool thing, Power BI, as you pick certain data types, Power BI will recognize, this is something that is a geographical type of data element and will represent it for you, or a chart type of element and will represent it for you appropriately. And there's some thoughts about how you pull different things in to get Power BI to represent things the way you want and so forth. But again, more of an introductory session today. Then there's the data set. So the data set is the data. This is the set of data, again, simple to complex, that Power BI uses to enable creating those visualizations, the color-coded map elements, the charts, the graphs, those types of things. And then the ultimate goal of this is to build a report. And so a report can be a collection of visualizations that appear together on one or more pages. These report elements, these pieces can be interactive. And like, for example, on the map elements, you can zoom in and out. You can move a pointer on a graph and kind of get detailed data at that part. And you'll see that in a minute. From the reports, we can create dashboards. So the dashboard is more of a focused kind of thing. So where a report can be multiple pages, the dashboard is a single page that contains elements from the report, or it could be just a collection of visualizations, whatever, to really demonstrate what you're trying to show with that dashboard. And then finally, there are tiles. And so the tiles are the single visualizations found in a report or a dashboard. So those sections of the dashboard or report that you want to display, right? Okay, again, just a few definitions, kind of thinking about the pieces that we're going to see and be using as we go forward. There are a few other tools that will come to play depending on what we're doing. We talked about Excel. We'll show that a little bit in a minute. Again, that's not the focus of our discussion, but for completion, there's the data gateways. And so what that is, depending on what you're doing and the kind of reporting that you or kind of data that you want to access, it could be that you need the cloud service to be able to access something like a SQL server on premise. And so you would need a gateway piece to allow that communication, right? Power BI for mobile, these are the mobile apps we talked about. Power BI Publisher for Excel, which allows you to load some of this stuff back and forth. Analysis and Excel updates and different things, right? So again, just some perspective on pieces of this. So this is the general flow, and as I say, general flow probably holds most of the time, vast majority of the time, the way things kind of progress during development. So you would use the Power BI desktop app or Excel, again, if you choose that way, but again, Power BI desktop app is the one that's used mostly, to build out your reports, your dashboards, work with your data, and so forth. Once you get the desktop app working or the data represented the way you want to in the Power BI desktop app, then you would upload that to the Power BI service where you could look at it, explore it, make it available to others through things like the Power BI mobile apps, right? So this is just kind of the general way things fit together. Okay, so introduced the terms, kind of talked about the flow. Now let's actually go through and explore these Power BI components. And so talk through them first, and then we'll kind of walk through them together. So the cloud service is first. So the cloud service is something that you access at powerbi.com. You'll see it in a minute, right? And as kind of alluded to, it is possible to work directly from the cloud service. The desktop app is the most common, right? There are different pieces that you can use to work in the service. In fact, let me just go ahead and pull it in and use it as a stage to talk through things as we go around. Right? Okay. Here is the front page of the Power BI service, right? So here I've not signed in. This is where you can sign up for free. I've actually got my live tenant over here, so I'll go ahead and actually close this one. So all that I've done to get from here to the next page is sign in, right? So this is the page that shows up once I sign in, right? So there's a couple of pieces. There's the content pack library sections. There's the import or connect to data sections. So let's talk about those. So the other thing too is you'll see get, and these are basically shortcut elements that will take you to a place to do whatever you want to do. You're going to find that a number of these take you to the same place. It just focuses the view of where you're going differently. Right? So for example, my organization, this is going to allow you to browse internal apps for your organizations. I don't have any internal apps published for the organization yet, but this is kind of just a shortcut to take you there. I can go to apps, I can go to more apps, but just to illustrate the way it works, services, if I click get, it's going to take me to exactly the same page, but this time instead of focusing here, it focuses here. And so these are basically online services that publish apps to help you in Power BI leverage and provide insight into specific data sets and so forth. So some that might be familiar, the Adobe Analytics, scrolling down, so application insights. We'll see some Azure mobile stuff, audit logs, and so forth. And on we go, right? All right, so if we close this, then we have this other section, import or connect to data. So a little bit that we can do to explore here. So as far as importing, what kind of files would you want to import? So we talked about that the desktop application is used to develop usually, right? And so once you develop in the desktop application, you will need to publish that data. You might also want to save it off in file form. There's a few different file formats that we support here. PBIX is one of them where you can save off your work in the desktop app. XLSX, XLSM, and CSV, those are Excel related kind of files. You can save that off, import it into the service, and so forth. Right. So if we go into the section here, import, you'll see I can browse for local files on OneDrive, business or personal, SharePoint sites, wherever I want to access that. And if I click on local file, it's going to show you those those extensions that we do support, right, to look for and be able to import that up here into the cloud service and be able to work with it more. Again, you don't have to do it that way. You can, inside the desktop application, you can actually publish directly to the cloud service, and then the data moves up that way as well. It's whichever, right? Whichever makes the most sense. There's other things, so you'll see, again, take a mental snapshot of this page. As soon as I go back here and I click on Get under the Databases section, it takes me to the exact same page, except here it just takes me to the Databases and More tab and so forth, right? So I can go connect to Azure SQL SQL databases. Now, also take a mental snapshot of this page as well, because again, one of the key elements, the key element for making anything work in Power BI is to have a data source. You can tap into a number of data sources in the desktop application that you don't see necessarily here in this view, right? Okay. And then while we're in this page, you can certainly go and explore your organization. Again, it takes you back to this familiar looking snapshot, and then back here. There's services, again, takes you back to this familiar snapshot. So this is what I'm saying, links go back and forth to the places that you're asking for. Here are samples. And so this one is a good place to actually get started. If you want to kind of visualize and have a look at how all of this might be able to look in your environment, then these are good little samples to help kind of stimulate some thought. In fact, if you click on one of these, it will actually load up into your Power BI environment. And I've actually already done that. So if I go out of here, just click back to get data, this is where we started. And this is really maybe where you think is the location to do everything. But if you kind of take a look over to the left, there's this section of menu items, and if you expand it, now you can see some of the pieces that you might have imported, either from your work with the desktop application, your work directly here, whatever, right? So again, just to kind of tie some things together, here's where you can import files. Here's where you can access certain types of databases, right? Live data, connect to live data in Azure SQL database, and a few more. Well, here's where you can actually see the results of that. And so I mentioned that you can actually work in the cloud service the same way you can with the desktop app. It's through these navigation elements. So I'll actually start at the bottom. So the data set is key to everything, right? Without a data set, it's not not all that exciting. You got to have data to be able to work on some things. So if I come into here, I can expand whatever. I've actually got some data sets. This is one of my sample data sets. So if I click on it, this will show you a page that is very similar to what you're going to see over in the desktop application, right? There's not as many menu items here as far as what you might want to do. Certainly, some of the things that you might want to do as we kind of hover over them, explore the data and different things. So here, different show file in Excel and things we're not going to drill into right now, but just to kind of show, different pieces that you can do and so forth, right? Here's the data that's actually been loaded up. And so to give you a quick demo, and I'll show you this again in the desktop app, and just again, take a mental snapshot. This is a bit different, though very functional, than what we have in the desktop app. But so if I take, continent data, I'll just move that over, drop it in here, then it's going to recognize this is geographical data and give me a map that the data can be plotted on, analyzed for. You might even see it, start to plug some things. If I want to put that on, I can. I just keep adding it to, the pieces here, and so forth, right? And ultimately, the goal of this is to take the data, this is a very simple data set, move it into this is called the canvas, and build out how you want your data to be represented graphically. There's definitely some tabular data and so forth here that I could maybe move on, right? And I could put it there. I could also maybe lay it on top of the graphic. Now, it will tell you, and that's why I did it this way, that certain data, this doesn't make sense, right, to put it there, so you can back it out and so forth, right? Anyway, so I'll come back to that. Once we have the data set and we're working with it, then we're trying to build toward a report or a report dashboard. So here's actually, let me use this data set. I'm going to not save that. This is the data set procurement analysis that I used. This is one of the samples, actually, from that samples library that comes along with a report just from this simple data set. Here's a procurement analysis report, the various elements that you can see, so you can actually move along. And as you go forward, you can see the elements change. Notice the monetary values changing as I'm moving the cursor along the report matrices, right? Same thing here, right? The detail. So a nice graphical representation. Same thing here. As I go into the geography, I can expand. I can pull back. And again, not a very exciting report here, but pretty cool, stuff as well, to be able to kind of frame things visually in a pretty impactful way. So that's the reports. Now, from this report, I might want to build a dashboard. And so here's the same analysis in a dashboard, elements that make sense, kind of in that form. And again, I can interact with, these pieces. Oops. These pieces if I want to, right? And so forth. Okay. All right. So that's really the the service, right? Now let me pull this out and show you the desktop app. So I'm going to pull this VM in, and I've already got the desktop app loaded. Actually, let me launch this because it takes just a second to launch, and then let me pull this back in. So where do you get the desktop app? From this cloud portal, from the cloud service. So if you click on download, you'll see a number of different pieces that you can download, right? And some of those that I talked about a moment ago. Power BI Desktop is what you would want to download and install on a system somewhere. So this is actually initializing Power BI Desktop. Again, it takes just a second, and then we can kind of walk through it for a bit. Okay, so this is loaded. So as we launch, just some shortcuts, some places we can watch some maybe videos and so forth, see what's new because this is changing all the time. Power BI, the service, last I heard is being updated every week, right, and so forth. So don't be surprised to come in here and see some things. We do need data, and so there's a shortcut here to get data you can just click on. I'm going to go ahead and remove this startup screen and show you the application totally. So again, here's the canvas. Here's the same navigation elements I was showing you in the cloud service view. A few more elements here that we can work with, right? So as we get started, we definitely need to get data and do different things. I'm going to save this for just a minute and actually show you a few things in Excel itself, just kind of leading up to this, right? Also, kind of in the spirit of demonstrating, I'm going to pull back in the cloud service, and I've actually got it already loaded in, but I mentioned that you can import data and use that in the cloud service. And you can publish it, as you'll see in just a minute, but if I want to go get data from a file and look at the local file, here are the file extensions that I have. This is on my desktop, Contoso sales sample. I can open that up, and it tells me that it's already imported. I'm going to go ahead and replace it, and I can import it, directly from there. Again, so how do we get the PBIX file? That is something that you can save off once you build whatever you want to build in the desktop app. You can actually save that off and then use that to import into the web service or the cloud service if you want to, right? Again, you can do it a couple of different ways. That way, publishing it directly, whatever makes sense for you. Okay, so just wanted to bring that together. Now, let me also, before I spend a little bit of time here, show you how to work with the Excel app. So I'm just going to load Excel. Now, while I do that, we support Excel elements in Excel 2010, 2013. If you have Excel 2016, it's going to be easier because a lot of these things are kind of already there. But I'll just start a blank one. So I mentioned Power BI is really kind of an umbrella term that encompasses a few pieces of technology that have been around in various forms for a little bit, right? So there are a couple, like in Excel, we have Power Pivot, we have Power View, right? And so those are elements of Excel. In fact, you see the Power Pivot tab up here. This tab is not here by default. In order to make this tab available in Excel, we have to go add in a couple of pieces. So if we go to Options and then go down to Add-ins and then go down to Manage and select COM add-ins, all right, and go, then we'll see the various Power Map, Power Pivot, Power View pieces that we might want to add in. I've already got them in there, so good enough. Once you add them in, you do have the Power Pivot tab here that you can work with, model different things and so forth. So just, again, not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but let's just talk about a couple of other things. So you might, and again, I'm just going to put in some silly things here. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one of the things, if you're going to be using Excel to interact with the Power BI service, then that's great. All of the data that you have needs to be represented in a table format. So in this case, it is not yet in a table format. So I need to go to the Insert Table and hit OK, and basically it's now converted to a tabular format. This could be imported into Power BI and recognized by Power BI, but unless it's in that kind of format, it's not going to be something that Power BI can see. All right, and then so with that in place, jumping way ahead, I'm going to go ahead and open up a sample file that I just found that we have published to the web to demonstrate some of this thing. Actually, browse here and to my desktop. Okay, so this is just a retail analysis sample that I pulled from the web. And so I want to show this to you on a couple of levels. First, you've seen now the Power BI elements, the charts and geographical charts and or geographical elements, the bar charts, the tabular elements, and so forth. So all of those are also renderable, if that's a word, in Excel. So for example, you can look at the different tabs down here and get an overview of the data that is just in the Excel format and so forth, right? So give that just a second, it will pop open. So these are the Power View fields, all right, and so forth. We populate it. Looks kind of similar to what we just saw over in the Power BI desktop app and the service. We can look at sales or focused views, district sales by month, new stores in region, and so forth, right? And all of this is using those power tools that we imported and talked about. And all of this is backed by data that we imported in that tabular format. So if we go to, so you see the Power View tab here. If we go to Power Pivot, look at or click Manage, we can actually see the data that actually backs up building some of this, some of these graphical elements. And there's a lot more we could talk about Excel. I'm going to really end it there because this is not going to be the primary focus area for most folks, but just to give you an idea. And then you can save this off in the Excel format. This is in the Excel format. That's how I imported it here. You could actually bring that forward into the desktop app. In fact, let me do that real quick. Let me close this out. So now that I have this built, I can go into the desktop app and I can pull it in and I can start working with it and so forth. So the place that we acquire data, the data source, is through the Get Data app. And you see there are several sections worth of data. There's, or actually, if I click on more, you'll see the groupings of data that you can actually use. So there's file-based data. These are the types of file formats that we support. There's database type data. These are all the different database platforms that we support. We don't support all of them the same, but we do support all of them in one form or another. Azure, online services, and other, different things that we can pull data from. So Excel is certainly a file type, and I can select that one, and it'll ask me where's my Excel file. This is the same one I just opened directly in Excel. So now we're importing it here. And again, won't spend much time. This is just showing what's in it, right? And that's as far as I'm going to take this one. The other thing that I want to show you real quick is just the data sources that we can do again. Well, actually, let's move forward a little bit. This is the second part of the demo. I'm going to use a very, very simplistic view of data in ConfigMgr to kind of show you how we connect the dots, right? Now, before I do that, why does a ConfigMgr admin care about Power BI? Well, hopefully, some of those pieces already are in your mind, right? As ConfigMgr admins, we care about reporting. It's a big deal. That's how we communicate the detail about the results that we have to leadership in various organizations. Power BI is the next level of reporting, right? Dashboards. So I hear a lot of people talking about using dashboards and making those impactful for the business. Well, Power BI makes it pretty straightforward to build pretty cool dashboards, right? Being able to navigate multiple data sources easily. So one of the conversations I've had with various folks is that they would like to be able to take maybe their CMDB, pair it up with the ConfigMgr data in the database for ConfigMgr, and really render detail together for the organization. Well, Power BI makes that a lot more straightforward, right? Anyway, so just real quick, and we won't go any depth into this, and this is a really silly example, but just to show you, with getting data, we can specify a SQL server. And so here, I'll just use my SQL server, and I can tell it what database to use. And I will just use, now there's two kinds of data that you can, kind of visualize here. First, you can import data into the tool here, which basically is a copy of the data, right? It's not something that can be dynamically updated, as the data changes, right? Whereas if you have a direct query, this does allow you to directly query your data, and as you run the report, if the data is changed, the report adjusts and so forth. So I'm going to select direct query and hit OK. Now again, just notice that I'm actually on premise, if you want to think of that, and building my data with an on-premise connection to my SQL Server. So I'll just find the table I care about within the database or the view. So I'll load this in. Load. So it's going to load it into my tool. I will see the data, represented here, creating my connection, so forth, ready to go. And I can do things like search. I don't know, I'll put in name. That might be an element I care about. So I can take that, pull it in. It recognizes it's a tabular field, so it builds a table. Other things that I might care about, I don't know, maybe active, whether the client's active or not. So I can grab that. Now I could put it out by itself and it would start to build another table, or I can lay it on top of the existing table. It'll just add to it. And maybe another one is, I don't know, something about, is this a virtual machine? So I'll use the uh, virtual machine piece, lay that on top, and again, just keeps building out my table, right? So not exciting and such, but what I can do here, I can come in and I can save my data set, right? That's one way. And I can click Save As, and you'll see that it's going to default to the PBIX format. Or what I can do is I can publish my data directly to the service. So yeah, I want to save my changes. I'll just call this demo 1, fine, save. And now it's going to publish it to the web service. And we're going to get an error here at the end of it. And I do this on purpose just to be able to illustrate this. Right, so give it a second here. Great. So yeah, replace publishing. And now I get an error, right? Publishing succeeded, but the report cannot connect to the data source because we were unable to find a gateway. So this is what I was talking about. So I've gone from on-premise working on my report to publishing it to the cloud service. Well, my data source is an on-premise SQL server. And because it's on-premise, you can't get to it from the cloud unless you have a gateway service, an enterprise gateway configured. So that's just an additional element you might want to think about depending on how you're doing reporting and publishing and different things, right? And so that's basically where I want to end today. Again, just introducing some concepts, some terms, some tools, things to get familiar with as we begin to explore Power BI even more so. So in terms of the future looking ahead, we'll talk about modeling a bit more. We'll talk about visualization of the data a bit more. We'll talk about ways to analyze the data a bit more as we go through sessions. And we're always working toward thinking through this in the configuration manager environment. So with that, we will end it here and we will see you in session 2.